Start recording now, so you're on video. Don't say anything controversial.
So maybe explain, because this will be the start of the video, explain what you're going to do.
Okay, so now we're going to look a little bit about how to prepare a testimony, some simple tips. So we can all try to do that. It's more about the testimony of my conversion. But yes, some of you have just shared oral experience. But Monique was going through her life, her conversion as well. So it's also what would you say?
What did you say? Maybe while we're, who's staying for lunch as well too? Just to get an idea. Does anyone? Sorry? There's possibility to have if people want to stay. Yeah. So maybe those who would like to stay, put your hand up for lunch. Those who just would rather. No, you can stay. You can stay. You can stay. Yes, no, maybe so. No, no, no. So just the 4 of us, 5 of us? Yep, okay, great. I think we've got a pasta dish up there that we can use for food.
Yes, so it's, well, I can start sharing something. So, yeah, a little bit as Monique did, we usually have like 3 main parts of the testimony, which is before my conversion, and then the moment of conversion, when God really touched my life in a special way. It can be, like in the case of Monique, she was already Catholic. She wasn't, I don't know, a bandit or a criminal. She was already a good girl, I suppose. But then there was a moment when she really met God in a more personal way. And but there can be different stories. There are all sorts of stories. If you look at the internet, there are conversion stories of Catholics or others. And so there is a moment before the conversion and the moment of the conversion, and then the moment the conversion itself. So you can just read. So the testimony has always been a central part of Christian evangelization. So the first Christians usually gave the story of their lives, of how they met Christ. And it's usually the way you can attract other people, especially your workmates or your family, hopefully. And so it's usually through a personal encounter with Jesus that we have this big change. There are very different stories. We are all very different. There are people who were devout all their lives. But anyway, usually there are some moments, crucial moments, that really change our view. So yeah, it's good to have it always prepare the testimony, because they can ask you at any moment. So you won't talk to other people about, I don't know, the theology of the Trinity or the incarnate. Well, you can also, but usually they will ask you why you are Catholic, why you go to church, why God is important for you. So it's good to have it always ready, which is one of the First Peter says to always have ready the reasons of your hope. So it's a nice passage. But they can ask you for that in a retreat, as some of you did, Gail did, and also Grace did a retreat. So it's good to have it ready. And it should be the easiest thing. We are not asking you again to give a talk about the mystery of the Trinity, but more about your personal experience. And so yeah, if you want to have a look, St. Paul has 3 accounts of his conversion, and they are different in 3 passages in the chapter 9, chapter 22, and 26. So it tell different details because he was in different stages of his life, and also because he had different publics in front of him. So it is very important to be situated in the people you have in front of you. So you won't use very difficult theological terms in front of a person who doesn't know anything about the faith. You will try to talk more about love or whatever, to little by little reach out to that person. And so yeah, that's important too. I can't be focused only on myself. I mean, it suits a personal testimony, but for example, I can't say too many details. I don't have to tell the story of all my life, because it won't be even interesting for the other person. I have to tell things that can be interesting for the other person and can lead them to God. Okay? And so, yeah, as I was talking with Katrina before, that it's good to pray about that, apart from the testimony, about the story of my life, to see how God has always been leading me and carrying me all my life, even when I wasn't aware of that. God has always been there. And for example, in our spiritual exercises, we pray about that, at least 1 day or 2 days. And so every time, even though I've been in the community almost 30 years, every time you find out new details of God's love for you, how He was carrying you all the time. So it's good for us as well to increase our love towards God. But then we can only share it at any moment. So,
And use the mouse, I think, just to scroll down. Just scroll.
So as I said, the very basic and simple structure is before conversion, the moment of conversion, and the after conversion. So it's about my experience, not about theories. Then another important thing is I don't have to confess in front of everybody, so to tell me my sins, and that is with the priest. You will see some testimonies that are very explicit. We are all different, but in general, I think it's better not to share very personal things, because otherwise the public will think about that all the time, and they won't listen to you anymore. They will be thinking about your sins. So, but there are people who share. I was a drug addict, I was a man, they will change it. So sometimes it can help, especially if you are talking to people with the same problems. So it's good to have the testimony checked by someone. That's why we're here, to try to learn all together. And then it's very important to talk about the fruits of my conversion. So not to focus on my horrible life before, but on how God changed me. The fruits. Monique, for example, shared how she got involved with her mission in Mauritius. So it's an example of a good fruit of your conversion, how God worked in you. And the thing, I don't need to talk about all my traumas. And then we are different. Sometimes you feel that you can share that and that will help others. Other times you feel that you are not called to share that, and you prefer to share other things. It's not compulsory. And again, you don't need to tell, to make movies about your life if you don't have such an exciting life. If you were Indiana Jones or whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's important to deeply believe that each story is wonderful, and each story, each testimony is valid, and so God has done marvelous things in us. So if we are convinced of that, we will tell our story with conviction and with passion, and it will be interesting for others. But if you start comparing to others, so that guy has a much more interesting story than me, and my life is very boring, so it won't work. But again, we are all different. And it's important to be sincere, not to invent things. So if we are authentic, that will help others, communities, will convince others. And yeah, another thing that can help is to have some passage of the Bible, some key passage that can be a summary of your conversion. Maybe you haven't that, or maybe it wasn't through the Bible you converted. I remember retreats where God really talked to me through a concrete passage, but also they are different. But as I said, usually there is an important moment of conversion, and so I should try to describe that with details a little bit, as when she was looking for God, when we went to a church and we met the priest and all that. And St. Paul, you remember, St. Paul fell down from the horse, even did something in the Bible, but he had this moment of enlightenment. So Jesus spoke to him, why are you persecuting me? And that moment, that dialogue, was the turning point of his life. And so that is it. And then again, tell the fruits, about the fruits of my conversion and encounter with Christ. Is that clear?
Any questions for Father Daniele?
Yes.
Yeah, we can put it on the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's not very, it's not very, yeah, we share it with the,
It's a beautiful PowerPoint.
yeah, it's very,
The question I ask you,
yeah,
Daniele,
yeah,
that is, you are Italian,
yeah.
but were you not like me born in a, you talk about conversion,
Yeah.
you talk about the later part of your life, or was it that you were not born in a very devout family like me,
I mean, I was born in a Catholic family,
a Catholic
yeah,
family?
but there was a moment when I met Jesus in a much more personal way. It was more part of my culture.
Oh, that's what you call your conversion?
Yeah.
Yes.
For example, I can talk about two moments of conversion, these like fundamental moments of conversion, but the most important one is when I met the community, the Verbum community. And that was early 22.
Oh, I see.
So, again, I wasn't a criminal, I wasn't a...
Did you make them that they come to you, or did you go there?
No, I went to the UK to study for an exchange, and I met them. So it was God who prepared everything. Yeah. But I tell my testimony maybe another time. Yeah.
That is,
And then,
well, that's, in my family, that is so devout that, as I tell you, we were all brothers and sisters. There wasn't one getting away from church, from at an early stage, very early stage or whatever. And we were two sisters following each other in the family, my sister Françoise and myself, and we were very close together. But we were very different from each other. She was very outgoing, many liking friends, boys and girls. She likes the boys very much and so on. Whereas I myself, I was rather withdrawn. I was rather introvert, and she was extrovert. And I like to study, yeah, whereas she did not care so much about studies and so on. And at 18, what happened? At 18, I got married. At 18, she entered the convent. Oh, really?
Yeah, we all have different stories. But we all have different stories.
Yes.
Because I know some of you weren't Catholics, and so we became Catholic. That was your journey. So it's like a basic structure we can all, I think, identify ourselves with. But we are different.
But it's very good, this clarification of, when he talks of conversion, is, yes, it's not necessarily meaning non-Christian to Christian, but it's all of us have a moment of conversion at different times in our life. Actually, I have many. Yeah, I think most of us probably have many, even every day, sometimes in different But it's that point of like where you've gone from a before to an after. So when we're talking about that conversion, is it the same? Father Daniele was always Catholic, baptized, you were baptized very young. So like it wasn't that you became Catholic, but at one stage you did become Catholic. In that sense, that before that it was something cultural, but then that conversion moment where it became real, where that moment became real.
Yeah, but you said that Jesus became a person, and so my relationship with Jesus became friendship, whereas before it was more saying prayers.
And then the problem, up to my time, in the church, that original, I mean, there was so much focus, accent put on sin. It was all the time, it's a sin, it's not a sin, it's a sin, it's a, in fact, God was regarded as sort of judge, as a judge, who was all the time watching us and looking at what we did good and what we did wrong. And there was a big book like that, I remember, of images, of pictures, which my mother and my aunt showed to us. And in it there was a representation of God, great God, holding scales. On one side, there were when we die, that is God is going to weigh out what you have done good, what you have done wrong.
Yeah,
That's the way we were.
Yeah, that was my experience.
Raised
Because
in the
like a false image of God, and then I found God as my love. But I think we should move on. So
We can continue with,
yeah,
if someone would like to
testimony.
share what they would like to share, and see how we go. Anyone else feel free?